Hey everyone, Tony D and Little Joan here on a hot take. We're doing another hot take on Bernie Sanders and his wacky followers. Um, if you haven't heard, Project Veritas has done it again and gone undercover and come up with some more wacky videos of a Bernie Sanders campaign employee, is my understanding. He's actually works for the campaign, and he is yet another hardcore communist who believes the gulags are a good thing and wants to institute them in America and, set a bunch of just communist nonsense. You could go online, you search for it. It's all over Twitter. It's all over YouTube and BitChute, I'm sure. It's just nuts. It's just absolutely nuts. Now, I know what a lot of you Bernie supporters would say, like, well, obviously Bernie doesn't believe that. And I'm with you. I don't think Bernie believes in gulags. But he should disavow these people. He should have them fired from the campaign. At the very least, just have them immediately fired. And, or at the very least investigate it to see if these people do that. And really, he needs to have better vetting in place. Or he has to come out and say, well, the gulags weren't so bad, if that's what he believes. I don't think he believes that. But, you got to keep in mind, this is a guy who went to the Soviet Union when he was a young man and on his honeymoon. And, at heart, I think Bernie is a communist. He may not openly state that, but I think at heart he would love to see, reforms a lot like the Soviet Union here. And if not, he really should make that distinction. He's talked about democratic socialism, but, I find it hard to believe that there is a line that democratic socialists wouldn't cross with regard to getting the government involved in whatever problem erupted in the United States. That's, again, it all comes back to limits on the left side of politics. There are no limits. Where is the line where the government, a very left-leaning government, even a democratic socialist one, would say, no, we don't get involved with that. Our government doesn't do that. And I think the answer is there is no limits. So consequently, democratic socialism just constantly takes over things. Every problem, we got a new government program, new government regulation. We'll come in, we're going to fix it all. And then that just causes more problems. And then they come in again and again and again and again. And the next thing you know, they're basically running the whole show. And you've basically got a form of socialism. And the socialism eventually destroys the industry. And since there are so many people working there and so many jobs at stake and so many people complaining, you're not going to get rid of all the regulations you set up. So what do? Well, we'll nationalize this particular industry. We're not going to nationalize all the industry, but we're going to nationalize this one. And then you nationalize another one and then another one, and then you have full-blown communism. So democratic socialism is socialism light. Socialism is communism light. And so it doesn't surprise me at all that some of Bernie's hardcore supporters are communist. It doesn't surprise me at all. And this is a guy who comes out of college probably and has all these thoughts in his head because at the end of the day, I think most people who support communism in the United States just don't understand economics. They just don't get it. They don't understand how capitalism works. They don't understand how money works or economics. All they know is some people don't have as much as other people, and therefore that's unfair. And they could somehow magically fix it by, making everybody even. So I ask you, communist, how do you set prices on things? How do you set them? If you don't have the free market and everything's controlled by the government, then the government decides on the prices. If you set the prices for labor, how do you know what labor's worth? So if you're going to say, well, nobody can make more than this amount and everybody's got to make at least that amount, what about the people who don't generate enough productivity to be worth your minimum? And what about the people who generate way more? You don't take into that. You can't pay everybody, say, $20 an hour, because the guy who sweeps up for a living, yeah, he'll make out great. The guy who's middle management, well, that's about what he'd get paid maybe. But, would you go to a doctor who is being paid $20 an hour and just punching in and punching out? Would you want to be defended by a lawyer who was just punching in and punching out? Would you want to work for a boss who made as much as you do? You might say yes to that until you actually work for them and then realize that, well, they don't really care because they can only make so much money, so why should they work harder? Why should you work harder if you're going to make the minimum? Why should you study and go to school and do all these things to get a higher paying job if there are no higher paying jobs? They're all the same. Why not just, be a taxi driver? You're going to make the same amount. If you get to sit around all day, if you're at an area that's not particularly busy and you just get to sit around all day and read your phone, you're still going to get your $20 an hour. So the part of the problem with a centralized system is the government can't account for all the variables. So the free market accounts for that, right? Because if you're a taxi driver trying to make money and you work in an area where there's no business, you move to another area or you do something else. But if you're paid by the government a minimum amount of money and you're working in an area and has no business, that's great for you because you don't actually have to work and you get paid either way. So you could just sit there like a lump. And that's what everybody would do under that system. And that's why things wouldn't get done. The idea that this guy could, in America spout like, oh, the gulags, they're really overblown and they're actually wonderful places where people got paid minimum wage. I ask you, communist, why doesn't this guy move to North Korea? They still have re-education camps in North Korea. They still have them in China. They're both communist regimes. Why not move there? If communism is good, why not move to where the communism is? Why not live under a communist system and then build that up and, expand from there? Why try to bring it to we don't want communism. We don't want it here. Every poll you could possibly take in America would say no to communism, no to socialism. You are in the tiny, tiny minority communist, and you're in a slightly bigger minority socialist. So you're not winning anybody fans with this nonsense about the gulags. If you have a system that's better, why did the Soviet Union collapse? Where's the Soviet Union if this system's so wonderful? Why is communist Cuba the way it is? Why don't they have good lives? And why does everybody want to come here? Why does everybody want to come to America if communism is so good? I just don't get your deal. I think you're I think you've got like a bit of a delusion going, and I think it's about being cool and being like an underdog and being like sort of a hipster that you're into communism. I think that's what it boils down to. It's like being contrarian and, just for the sake of being contrarian, because you could say, well, communism would work way better than all the things that are going on around you. It just, people keep us down because real communism hasn't been tried, And that's an easy defense to put up, but what do you have to back it with? I mean, there's communism doesn't work. Socialism doesn't work. And you have this ill-informed guy working on the Bernie campaign. He's not spouting democratic socialism. He's spouting communism. So if it's a different thing, why is he doing that? Why is he allowed to work at the campaign? Why is he doing this? Why does he believe this? Why would a full-blown communist work for your campaign. It doesn't make any sense to me. I'm a libertarian. I wouldn't work for, a Republican campaign unless it was libertarian, unless it had libertarian ideals. So does Bernie have communist ideals that this guy is attracted to? I don't think so. I don't think you could say that Bernie's proposing anything overtly communist unless you believe that his policies are kind of communist. I guess in a very roundabout way you could say that, but or are these guys just crazy and misinformed? If so, that's another reason you should get rid of them. I mean, you don't want any incompetent people on the payroll spouting this nonsense and giving people the wrong impression. I mean, do you really want to get votes for Bernie, based on this crazy communist? I mean, it could end up blowing up in your face, right? They could get to the voting booth expecting all this crazy communist nonsense and then realize, oh, wait a minute, this is Bernie Sanders. I'm reading a pamphlet here. He's not a communist. He's merely a democratic socialist. I'm out of here. And who knows, maybe he takes people with him. Or maybe he just votes for somebody else out of spite. I think, having a guy who's going to say stuff in the positive about the gulags, which were, it's a historical fact. The gulags were horrible places where people were tortured and they died in the millions. I mean, this is just, it's insane. It's horrifying, and Bernie shouldn't allow it. If you had a guy like this in a Republican or a Democratic campaign, I think he'd be immediately fired. No problem. No question. The fact that hasn't happened in Bernie's, it's like, he's going to tolerate this guy? I mean, do you really want a guy who endorses gulags? People in the campaign get in the administration. They get positions in the administration sometimes, or positions in government. Would you want anyone who believed in gulags to be in a position anywhere in the government? I don't think you would, especially if what if he got a job in the prison system? I mean, imagine what he'd do if he actually got a job, working in some committee, reshaping the prison system in the United States. I think he'd be very alarmed that a guy who believed in gulags was working on the prison system in the United States. So I think that this is an easy win for Bernie. He should come out and just say, you know what? He's been dismissed. He should not be saying these things. And we're not communists. We're democratic socialists. These are not things we believe. I don't think he will. I think it's a tacit sort of tolerance of this stuff within his campaign, because they don't want to lose votes. They need every vote they can, and they're afraid to alienate anybody who is even tacitly communist. And I think that's a shame. Bernie seems to be a guy who has the courage of his convictions. He should come straight out and say it. This is twice. This is not just once. These are two guys, both apparently paid members of the Bernie Sanders campaign, spouting wild communist nonsense. And if they're crazy guys, then they need to be marginalized like crazy, aberrations that they are. And if they're not, then Bernie's got to suck it up, and he's got to take part of the blame for what this guy says. And that is not a good look. That is not a good look. If he gets on that debate stage with Trump, I mean, it'll only take one commercial with clips from these guys in it. And that, it'll be all over the internet. It'll be all over the airwaves. Good luck. Good luck selling your message then, Bernie fans.